Hi, it's Sheridan Webb here from the Training Designers Club, which is the place to go for practical L&D support, especially if you work on your own. And today it is a Monday and I do have a musing, and it's based on the trip I did at the weekend. Had quite a long journey to undertake, all the way down to the southeast from the northwest. So I did it in 2 days. And obviously on a journey like that, you need to take a break. So we stopped at some services, went in, visited the facilities, decided that we needed just a cup of tea, and we walked in and were faced with this. This is a very common sight now, and it's becoming more and more common, isn't it? Where we're just faced with these giant screens and we have to navigate the menus and try and discover what it is we want and add it to the order. Um, and if you can't find it on the right menu, you don't even know what they've got sometimes. I mean, I don't often go to places like KFC. I don't know what's on the menu. I want to be able to see, and just have it all laid out in front of me. And maybe I'm being a grumpy old woman, because I'm not saying I'm against automation. It absolutely has its place. But it was so frustrating that I couldn't just walk up to a counter and say, "Can I just have 2 cups of tea, please?" No, I had to go through this ridiculous menu, this long process to do something that was supposedly quite simple. In the end, we did manage to find one outlet that allowed you to speak to a human. So that's who got our business. But it got me thinking about the way that things are going, and say I'm totally not against this. I think, the apps and app-based facilities, self-serve checkouts, they absolutely can add value, but as long as it's part of a choice. It should never be the only way that we could do something. And it got me thinking about the move towards driverless cars and things like this as well. It's almost like we are trying to engineer ourselves out of every single process. And what are we going to do when there's no longer anything for us to do? And I wonder if L&D is heading down the same road with app-based learning, with AI-generated content, self-serve libraries. It's all asynchronous learning. Do everything on your own and in your own time. And I'm not saying that that isn't a good thing to have, just like the option to order on an app. It's a good choice to be able to have that, because sometimes that is the most effective way for us to learn something. But I am concerned that we're being pushed into it being the only way, because that's where the investment's being made. That's what you see at big exhibitions. That's what the stakeholders in senior positions seem to want. We seem to be engineering not only ourselves out of a job, but more importantly than that, way more worryingly than that, is learners out of an actual learning experience. And that's because learning doesn't happen when it takes no effort. Learning doesn't happen when we blindly and passively scroll through content. Learning doesn't happen when we can just go click, 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 and just what we need is right in front of us. Learning takes effort. We know this from neuroscience, that unless we put some effort into the learning, unless there's some sort of seeking, some problem solving, the learning is never going to stick. We know that learning requires repetition and retrieval. Again, otherwise, it's just something that is just being processed. Some things, that's fair enough. We don't need to learn it. It doesn't need to stick in our brains. And I think that is a useful distinction for us to make. But if we really need people to learn something, there needs to be cognitive effort involved. And that's never going to happen if we're making things as easy and as quick and as automated as we possibly can. I think the other thing that we need to consider as well is that we are social creatures, and we learn far better when we learn with other people. Our brains are creative. And when we discuss things with other people, when we observe other people, when we work on a problem together, we learn from them. We learn from their experience as well as our own. And when we can tap into the experience of our peers, that amplifies our learning no end. So I am a little bit concerned that as an industry, we are being pushed into optimizing for ease, for automation, for scalability. And whilst we're doing that, we are absolutely not optimizing for the human learning experience. And that human learning experience requires effort, it requires retrieval, it requires pacing, and it requires social connection. So what can we do as learning designers? I think we do need to push back. We do need to talk about what actually happens when people learn. And there's loads of great people out there that you can learn far more about neuroscience than me from. There's people like Stella Collins, who's an excellent book. There's Lauren Waldman, who's doing some great stuff. When we understand how the brain works and how we learn things, we can then design a better learning experience, not necessarily one that can be crammed into 10 minutes. Because the one that's crammed into 10 minutes and can be scaled to 50,000 employees is unlikely to be the thing that is actually going to change behaviour and drive results. We need to focus on enhancing those learning experiences for the actual humans who need to be a part of the process and who need to actually do something with it, change the behaviour and change the outcomes. So a little bit of a deep one today, maybe a little bit of a rant, who knows? But I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. What trends are you seeing and how are you trying to counteract them? For more videos like this, do check out the rest of the YouTube channel, listen to the Training Design podcast, and of course visit the website, which is www.trainingdesignersclub.co.uk, where you'll find lots of free and low-cost resources and have the opportunity to join a community of peers who will offer you that connection, that support, and that challenge.